In a quiet suburban neighborhood, where the yards were neatly trimmed and friendly smiles greeted one another, Karen lived in a crisp, white house with cheerful flowers lining her walkway. She prided herself on her privacy and enjoyed the serenity of her little corner of the world. Yet, a creeping concern began to take hold of her: technology and its ability to invade personal space. The source of her anxiety was her neighbor Jake's new Ring camera. Though it faced only his front door, Karen couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Each time she stepped outside to water her plants or grab the mail, she imagined the camera's lens capturing her every move. The thought sent shivers down her spine. It felt as if someone invisible was monitoring her daily life. Convinced that no one should have to live under such watchful eyes, she mulled over her options. She had heard of others who had taken similar steps in defending their privacy, and soon enough, Karen made up her mind. Fueled by a mix of determination and apprehension, she decided to file a complaint with the Homeowners Association. "This is unacceptable," she told herself as she penned the letter, hoping others would understand her plight. As she sealed the envelope, an uneasy feeling settled in: surely others wouldn't dismiss her concerns so lightly. In Karen's eyes, this Ring camera, an innocent device for some, was a looming threat that marred the tranquility of their community. Little did she know that Jake was about to respond in a way entirely unexpected, one that would escalate their simmering tension into an all-out neighborhood drama that would upend everything they both believed about privacy and trust. The Ring camera hung above Jake's front door, sleek and unassuming, blending in with the brick facade of his home. Its purpose was clear: to monitor visitors and provide an extra layer of security for his family. Positioned perfectly to capture anyone approaching the entryway, it offered peace of mind to Jake, who frequently traveled for work. Yet to Karen, standing in her own yard a few feet away, it felt like an unsettling eye watching her every move. From her perspective, the camera loomed larger than life. Every time she stepped outside to enjoy her garden or collect the mail, she couldn't help but glance over at the shiny device. "What if it's recording me?" she thought anxiously. Though it only pointed at Jake's door, Karen's imagination ran wild with thoughts of being scrutinized while going about her daily routine. As days passed, Karen became more fixated on the camera's presence. She imagined scenarios where neighbors discussed her actions based on footage from the Ring device. The reality was that no one else seemed bothered by it. Residents walked past without a second glance, their lives unfolding without concern for privacy violations. Yet each innocent movement turned into a source of dread for Karen. Despite knowing that the camera had no view into her yard or windows, she felt trapped in her mind by an irrational fear. The camera might as well have been aimed directly at her with its unblinking lens, a constant reminder that technology had seeped into the very fabric of their tight-knit community. Karen's determination to act grew stronger as she wrestled with these thoughts. She felt that addressing what she perceived as an invasion was not just about herself but also about the principle of privacy in their neighborhood, a fight she believed was worth pursuing. Karen paced back and forth in her kitchen, clutching her pen tightly, the paper for her complaint spread out on the table. She had drafted it several times, but each version seemed inadequate to convey her feelings of violation. The Ring camera, a small gadget designed for safety, had somehow transformed into a symbol of her growing paranoia. As she took a deep breath, she reminded herself that she wasn't just acting on impulse, she was fighting for her right to privacy. With each stroke of the pen, Karen articulated her concerns to the Homeowners Association. She highlighted how the camera, although aimed solely at Jake's door, felt intrusive from her perspective. "What if it captures my children playing in our yard?" she wrote, adding a note about how unsettling it was to feel monitored while simply going about her day. The more words flowed onto the page, the more justified she felt in her decision. After completing the letter, a mix of fear and determination washed over her. Would others agree with her? Would they understand that it wasn't just about the camera itself but what it represented? Karen could already hear the clinking of glasses and chatter from nearby houses as neighbors gathered for their weekend barbecues, seemingly carefree while she felt like a prisoner of anxiety. As she sealed the envelope, doubts began to creep in. Was she overreacting? No one else seemed bothered by the Ring camera, in fact, most neighbors probably saw its presence as reassuring rather than threatening. Yet deep down, Karen believed that addressing this perceived violation was critical for her peace of mind, and potentially for others who might resonate with her fears. Her hand trembled slightly as she dropped the envelope into the mailbox. Karen knew they would soon hold a meeting to discuss it, and whatever unfolded next could change everything for her neighborhood. When Jake received Karen's complaint from the homeowners association, he felt a wave of frustration wash over him. The Ring camera was meant to safeguard his family, not to invade anyone's privacy. He had installed it after a string of break-ins in the area, hoping to deter any potential threats. Now, he found himself in an unexpected conflict over what he thought was a simple home security measure. Sitting in his living room, surrounded by family photos and the comforting hum of their everyday life, Jake couldn't believe how quickly things spiraled out of control. He had always considered himself a friendly neighbor, one who valued his community's safety as much as his own family's. But Karen's complaint made him feel unfairly targeted and misunderstood. Determined to respond, Jake and his spouse decided to devise a plan that blended humor with frustration. Instead of taking the complaint lying down, they went online and found an oversized fake security camera that was not only ridiculous but also equipped with a motion sensor feature. The intention was clear: it was a playful way to show Karen how her worries may have been blown out of proportion. After mounting the giant, exaggerated camera on a pole aimed directly at Karen's yard, they installed it with the motion sensor activated, causing it to swivel toward any movement nearby. For Jake, it was a light-hearted jab at the absurdity of the situation. For Karen, it would soon become another source of anxiety. As Jake revealed his creation to his friends at the neighborhood barbecue, they laughed about the prank, bonding over what they saw as a comedic response to Karen's worries. Little did they know that this light-hearted retaliation would only deepen the tension between neighbors and escalate the privacy drama in their community. Jake's decision reflected not just exasperation but also a sense of camaraderie among neighbors, where humor could sometimes replace understanding. As Jake and his spouse unboxed the oversized fake camera, excitement bubbled over. It was an absurd sight, a giant, cartoon-like security camera that towered over most of the plants in their yard. The camera's glossy exterior shone brightly in the sunlight, almost too large to take seriously, yet that was part of its charm. Designed for humor, it was meant to poke fun at the situation that had spiraled beyond Jake's expectations. What truly set this whimsical piece apart was its assortment of features. Equipped with a motion sensor, the camera would rotate smoothly on its mount whenever it detected movement nearby. Jake had rigged up a servo motor hidden inside it that allowed for this graceful swiveling action, making it seem as if the ridiculous device was genuinely tracking any passers-by. Every time someone walked through Jake's yard or even stepped close to Karen's fence, the large lens would turn towards them, appearing to survey the scene as if it were a serious piece of security equipment. As an extra touch, Jake included a laser pointer that beamed a small red dot onto Karen's yard whenever the camera rotated. This feature was particularly amusing to him. Though harmless, the dot seemed like an exaggerated invitation to watch out, transforming ordinary garden activities into something far more dramatic. To Jake and his friends at the barbecue, this spoof served as a reminder of how seriously Karen seemed to take his existing Ring camera, and they all laughed at how simple misunderstandings could lead to upheaval in their peaceful block. Meanwhile, to Karen standing just across the property line, this comically massive contraption would soon feel like yet another invasion, a twist that only deepened her spiraling anxiety amidst what had started as a light-hearted prank. The larger-than-life fake camera amplified her sense of being watched, escalating her worries while Jake simply sought to diffuse mounting tensions through humor. As the oversized fake camera whirred and rotated, Karen felt her anxiety skyrocket. Standing in her yard, she watched in disbelief as the absurd contraption seemed to follow her every movement, making her feel like a character in a poorly written sitcom. The comical nature of the device did little to ease her tension. Instead, it transformed her feelings of paranoia into a full-blown spiral of worry. In her mind, the giant camera became a symbol of ridicule, amplifying her fear that neighbors were laughing at her as she navigated what felt like an increasingly hostile environment. "What if they think I'm overreacting?" she fretted, recalling how everyone had gathered for Jake's barbecue. Was she now the subject of their jokes? The camera's fake laser pointer only intensified her dread, as every time it flickered across her yard, it felt like a spotlight illuminating her struggles to the world. Despite knowing that the camera was not recording anything and was just a prank, the emotional weight felt real. She imagined how the laughter from the barbecue would echo in her ears as she went about mundane tasks like watering flowers or reading on her porch. Each innocent moment was now tainted with the feeling that she was being scrutinized. Unable to shake the sensation that Jake was staging a bizarre contest to see who could make the other more uncomfortable, Karen felt trapped in a theater where the audience had turned against her. The more she thought about it, the more isolated she became, replaying every interaction with Jake and wondering if any of it had been genuine or simply part of this ongoing battle over perceived privacy. In a neighborhood where she had once felt safe and connected, Karen now found herself feeling watched and judged, exacerbating her anxiety and leading her to plan how she might confront Jake yet again. She needed to reclaim her sense of security and peace amidst this chaos, even as it continued to unravel around her. As whispers about the escalating drama spread through the neighborhood, residents began to form opinions about Karen's complaint and Jake's mock retaliation. Some neighbors felt sympathy for Karen, understanding her concerns about privacy in a world increasingly dominated by surveillance technology. They recalled their own moments of discomfort with security cameras, recalling how they had chosen to install them for protection but also wondered about their implications on personal space. On the other hand, there were those who sided with Jake, finding humor in the oversized fake camera and viewing it as a clever response to what they deemed an overreaction. To them, it was a light-hearted way to address a situation that had become unnecessarily tense. Conversations bloomed at the local coffee shop and during evening strolls, with neighbors debating the fine line between safety and invasion of privacy. "Karen should lighten up," one neighbor exclaimed during a gathering, chuckling at the thought of the comically large camera. "It's just a prank. She needs to focus on real issues." But others disagreed, insisting that privacy should be respected no matter how benign the intent seemed. They argued that Karen's feelings were valid and that Jake's prank only served to escalate her anxiety. Meanwhile, a few residents took it upon themselves to mediate between the two parties, suggesting a neighborhood meeting to discuss privacy and security concerns in a more productive manner. They hoped to create an open dialogue where everyone could express their views without fear of judgment or ridicule. As the community grappled with differing perspectives, Karen felt increasingly isolated, torn between wanting to be part of her neighborhood and feeling like the target of ongoing mockery. The tension built like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash further conflict unless genuine conversations could pave the way for understanding and resolution. As Karen's anxiety deepened, her thoughts spiraled into a chaotic whirlwind of paranoia and frustration. She felt increasingly convinced that the neighborhood was divided against her, with each neighbor secretly siding with Jake. Every whisper she overheard and every glance exchanged between others felt like proof of her worst fears, that they were all laughing at her plight instead of supporting her. Desperate for validation, Karen began approaching neighbors to discuss her concerns about privacy. However, her heightened emotions often led to misunderstandings. When she tried to explain how the oversized fake camera made her feel vulnerable, some residents misinterpreted her passion as anger or bitterness. "It's just a joke," one neighbor said dismissively, leaving Karen feeling even more isolated. In her quest to rally support, she inadvertently came off as overly dramatic. "Do you not see what's happening?" she would ask fellow residents, but they often responded with blank stares or polite reassurances that only stoked her frustration. The more she pushed for understanding, the more she felt misunderstood. Karen's attempts to gain allies backfired when she overheard a group of neighbors discussing the situation at the park. "She's taking this way too seriously," one said, chuckling lightly. Karen's heart sank as she realized that instead of finding solidarity, she was becoming the topic of gossip among those she once considered friends. Feeling cornered and desperate, Karen resolved to take action again, this time planning a larger gathering where residents could openly address issues of privacy and respect in their community. Yet within herself, doubt lingered: would anyone truly listen? Or was she destined to be the butt of a joke in a neighborhood that had once felt like home? As these thoughts consumed her, Karen felt an urgent need for clarity amidst the confusion, a way to reclaim not just her sense of privacy but also her place within the community fabric she cherished. The day of the neighborhood gathering arrived, and Karen felt a mix of determination and dread. With her heart racing, she approached Jake's house, where the oversized fake camera loomed like a mocking sentinel. As she steeled herself for a confrontation, she reminded herself that this was about reclaiming her sense of privacy and standing up for what she believed was right. "Jake! Can we talk?" she called out, her voice shaky but resolute. Jake stepped out, surprise flickering across his face as he took in Karen's serious demeanor. The air was thick with tension as Karen pointed at the comically large camera that had become a source of constant anxiety for her. "This isn't just a prank. It's an invasion." Jake blinked in confusion before responding, "Karen, I never intended to make you feel uncomfortable. It was meant to be light-hearted. I thought you'd find it funny." As the words left his mouth, something shifted in Karen's perception. She realized he wasn't trying to belittle her concerns but rather deflecting them with humor, a way to cope with her complaint. "But it doesn't feel funny to me," she shot back, frustration and hurt bubbling up. "I see that thing rotating towards me every time I step outside. It feels like I'm being watched." Jake took a deep breath, sensing the depth of her distress. "I get it. But honestly, I only did this after feeling frustrated myself. That camera is just my way of saying that privacy is tricky these days, living in such close quarters," he explained earnestly. In that moment, an unexpected revelation unfolded between them, their shared concern for privacy yet deeply different ways of handling it. The tension began to dissolve as they realized they were both grappling with feelings of vulnerability in their own ways. As the conversation continued, Karen felt some of her anxiety lift. Perhaps there was more common ground than she had initially thought. Maybe this gathering wasn't just about airing grievances but an opportunity to truly understand and communicate with one another, transforming neighbors into allies rather than adversaries. As the gathering drew to a close, a palpable shift occurred within the neighborhood's atmosphere. Karen and Jake, once at odds, now held a fragile understanding of each other's fears and frustrations. The tension that had previously defined their interactions began to dissipate as they recognized that their actions, though misguided, stemmed from a common concern for privacy and safety. Reflecting on the whole ordeal, Karen realized that her initial reaction had been fueled by fear more than facts. The anxiety she felt about Jake's Ring camera had clouded her judgment and led her to escalate the situation instead of seeking dialogue. She understood now that communication was vital in navigating the complexities of living closely with others. Jake, too, reconsidered his response to Karen's complaint. What he had intended as light-hearted humor had instead deepened the divide between them. He recognized that while he aimed to lighten the mood with his oversized fake camera, it had inadvertently pushed Karen further into her spiral of anxiety. This realization prompted him to think about how humor can sometimes misfire in sensitive situations. The neighbors who had gathered were inspired by this newfound openness between Karen and Jake. Many began to share their own stories about privacy concerns, sparking an earnest dialogue among all present. It became clear that while technology could enhance security, it also brought feelings of vulnerability that needed addressing. As the sun set over the neighborhood, casting a warm glow on their homes, a sense of community emerged from the chaos. Neighbors who once felt isolated found solace in shared experiences, leading them to consider how they could collectively establish guidelines for privacy and open communication moving forward. In this moment of unity, both Karen and Jake learned that true resolution comes not from confrontation but through understanding and cooperation, a lesson that would strengthen their community ties long after this incident faded into memory.